We're Neuro Bros, we got a show. We like to share what we know to help you move and be more stable. Got a question, put it on the table. Let's have some fun and keep on learning so we can keep the fire burning. So enjoy the show, take it in, and we thank you all for joining in. Okay, we are live. Neuro Bros show. Russ here, going solo. My friend and brother Karl is not with us today. He'll be joining us within the next few weeks. I've got a very busy schedule there, training away, doing all this great stuff. Today's topic is going to be putting together an exercise program for Parkinson's, and what are some of the considerations and strategies that you should think about. I'm going to give lots of different tips on, I'll have information on what are the types of exercise that are effective for PD, but a lot of different tips as far as, how to customize a program for yourself. What are the types of exercise that are effective, not just the different kinds of programs, like Rocksteady and different things like that, but get into the nitty-gritty of what are the actual types of physiological changes that you could benefit, that you get benefit from doing exercise. That you'll get benefit on improvement of your Parkinson's symptoms, which I think we could all agree on, that is a common goal amongst all of us folks with Parkinson's, is to reduce symptoms and slow progression of the disease, hopefully, or at least slow progression of symptoms. So, and we all know, a lot of us know anyway, that we've proven that if you've been involved, anybody who's been involved with exercise, you've probably seen the effects of the positive effects. For those of you who haven't gotten started with exercise, there are a lot of studies out there now. There weren't as many studies on Parkinson's exercise years ago, but you're seeing more and more now. So there's documented proof of the benefits and impact on symptoms for exercise. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to just start out with some just general concepts, and I think that's an important thing. Learning the concepts of why, when you do certain exercise, why you see benefit and what's actually going on in your body. The more you understand the concepts, then you could be more flexible and knowledgeable about putting together a program customized for you, and be more comfortable with that. So I think it's important to understand the concepts, because once you understand the types of exercise and the types of movements that help, you might get a recommendation of one type of thing, and you'll have other different things available to you, and you'll see that there's a lot of similarity between different types of exercise, different types of exercise programs, different types of movements, and that sort of thing. Good morning, Laura Almos. Let's see, we got last week, last time I did this on my own, I didn't see all the comments. So I see comments on my left, and then there were some comments that I ended up seeing later on. Hopefully I got them all showing up now. Great to have you joining us. So let me continue. So I just wanted to talk about some of the major benefits of exercise and some terminology. So first one, there's a few major themes on how exercise impacts your movement and how that relates to your brain or your musculoskeletal system, your nervous system, and that type of thing. So one of the concepts is neuroplasticity, And basically, we see neuroplasticity. That's a lot of times when we do exercises that are related to some sort of skill, agility, balance, um, anything that takes coordination, takes a little bit of brain power because you're doing multitasking, that type of stuff. What's happening there with neuroplasticity is the brain is rewiring itself. You're learning new skills, and when you get Parkinson's, you have symptoms um, like you have trouble walking and doing some of the things that used to come automatically. So what a good exercise program does for you is sort of helps you reprogram some of those skills. You have to kind of relearn some things. So that's what neuroplasticity is all about. And there's another important benefit that we see in exercise that's related to the brain. There's a neurotrophic factor, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, that's generated when we exercise, and that has a neuroprotective effect, and it has it's called nickname for it. A lot of people say is a miracle growth for the brain. So that also has a positive effect. And different exercises will generate BDNF, but the most beneficial one that studies have showed gets the most is cardio. And this could have the generation of BDNF could not only have a positive effect on symptoms, but also could possibly delay progression of the disease, or at least progression of symptoms. So those are a couple of main concepts behind how it actually impacts your brain and your physiology. If I had to, I'm going to get into all sorts of details on all sorts of types of exercise, and then examples of different modalities. Whether it's yoga or Tai Chi or sports movements or rock steady boxing, physical therapy, working with a trainer, all those different things. There's a lot of different things that go into it. But if I had to summarize it in it's down to three main things. One would be the cardio that I mentioned. Three main things that you should concentrate, that should include your program. One would be the cardio, which I just mentioned is great for generating the BDNF. Depending what type of cardio you're doing. Hey, Karl. Hola. Dropping in to say hi. Cool, man. Cool, bro. The cardio also, depending on what you're doing, could also have an impact on your skill improvement, your walking gait. There could be some neuroplasticity going on there. For instance, if you're doing running, that takes a certain amount of coordination and that type of thing, and you'll get some of that neuroplasticity going on as well. So I said there were three things. So one was the cardio, and then I put into a broad-based category: mobility, agility, alignment, stabilization exercises, anything that develops a new skill. And in the case of people with Parkinson's, a lot of times it's a lost skill. You've lost some sense of balance, stabilization, you feel unstable, coordination. So that's the other category. It would be like skills and things like balance and agility, and then the cognitive multitasking stuff also kind of goes into that as well. You're doing when we do cognitive training, it's usually you're doing multiple movements at once, which could be like a sports kind of movement, or combining two different movements, and then you add in a cognitive piece, which usually could be things like counting or some other type of task. You just keep stacking tasks one on top of the other. So that's the other category. Category 2: mobility, agility, multitasking. And then I guess the third category I would say would be mind-body, which use like yoga, Tai Chi, relaxation, meditation. That's an important part of your program. I would count, some of these things. When you think of exercise, you think of using your limbs and muscles and things like that. But I would count, meditation and breathing exercises as exercise is part of your exercise program too, and something to include. So I talked about the BDNF, the positive impact of that neuroplasticity. So on the mind-body stuff. I put another category in there as far as benefits to your body, and that would be stress reduction or maximizing your utilization of dopamine by not being stressed. So I think the mind-body stuff is an important component too, because you could get the benefits of other exercises, but if you're stressed a lot, you could kind of negate some of the positive impact you get from exercise. So all these things are intertwined, and you have to consider when you put together an exercise program how you're going to align all the different types of exercise. What time of day, how often, how many times a week. All those things are going to impact you just getting it done, but also the effect that it will have. How much of a positive effect will it have on you? So if you don't leave enough time and you're not getting in sufficient exercise, or you're doing it in a situation that causes you stress, all those things are going to affect your PD symptoms by maximizing your dopamine or not so much. So I have an article I wrote. So when you see me looking down, I'm going to be looking at the notes. An article on this exact topic, and it's just like a 5-page article. So I could actually share that, and it's in a PDF file. I could share that in the Neuro Bros Facebook group. I'll just put it in there as a post. Now let's get it. I wanted to get into components of an effective exercise program. I talked about them just in a general sense. But I wanted to just go through down a list of things that you should really include. And I had mentioned in the beginning of the presentation how understanding these concepts are important, because once you understand about the different ways of moving and how that benefits, then when you come across different exercises, you may be able to judge better how beneficial that will be for you. So one of the components that is important is that it's tailored to you. The program will be tailored to you, your symptoms, your ability, your likes and dislikes. It's always good to include stuff in there that's fun. Again, that might help maximize your dopamine utilization. If you're doing something you enjoy, you're going to get a little extra benefit, dopamine boost from that. Kamal, how you doing? Great that you could join us. Okay, so tailored to you, and it should also meet your goals. Exercise should meet your goals. So this is one point that I would like to bring up. A little phrase that people use when we talk about what exercise that you should do, and a lot of times people use that phrase. The exercise you should do is the one that you will do. But I'd like to add a little qualification to that, one that you will do and that will meet your goals, because if you don't have any chronic diseases dragging you down, you could very well live a nice, healthy life, just doing moderate exercises, taking a short walk every day, doing a little gardening, a few simple movements here and there. But I just like to say that I really don't agree with that phrase. Anything you will do will be a benefit. The exercise you will do will be a benefit, and then just doing a little bit. If you interpret that as just doing whatever I want to do, and that ends up being a little bit, that will suffice. That won't cut it with PD because you got to stay ahead of the curve. PD is relentless, and if you're not relentless as well, just a dose of reality, you're not going to be able to keep up with the progression of symptoms. So it's the exercise you'll do, but they'll meet your goal. And a lot of us have that common goal of reducing symptoms, and we want to see the progression of the disease slow. So I would just add that in, that you have to do a sufficient amount of exercise. But there is some goodness in that statement. The exercise you will do isn't a bad way to start out, at least. So I will admit that if you find something that you like, sure, do that, and then maybe you could use that as a building block to build up to a bigger program, more extensive. So another component that is important for PD, and then some of these things depend on your symptoms, but big, powerful movements are important. And there's the LSVT and POWER program, the PWR programs, Parkinson's wellness recovery programs that the physical therapists use a lot. And that's what we're talking about, those big, powerful movements, big, powerful, fast, large range of motion. There are some exercises where slow movements are also a benefit too. So I will say that. So it depends on the exercise. If slow movement is included in the modality, like Tai Chi or different things like that, there's something called the Alexander technique. There are benefits to that as well. It depends on the type of exercise. So there are exceptions to that rule. But those big, powerful movements are going to help you overcome, especially bradykinesia and rigidity sometimes, which causes that, you have that slowness and stiffness. A variety of movements. So variety is the spice of life. Do a lot of things. Just move different. You could just move around and make stuff up besides traditional exercise. You could even make stuff up yourself. Walk backwards, walk sideways, put on some music, move in all different directions, do cross body movements. So variety movements is good because you have a movement disorder, and we move in all different directions. We move our body in all different ways. When we do daily chores, it requires a lot of different movements: bending down, twisting, turning, reaching, and there are things like getting up from the floor, getting up from a chair, just walking, going up and down the stairs, all different things, chores we have to do around the house. There's all different things we have to do that require a variety of movements. So your exercise program should try to reinforce those skills as well. You want to reinforce good movement and avoid dysfunctional movement. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Just means have an understanding of or whatever skill you're doing, and you'll encounter situations once you get into an exercise program, you'll be introduced to different skills, and so when you're introduced to these different skills, you really should assess what level you should be doing them at. So when I talked about reinforcing dysfunctional movement, if you're given an exercise and you're really struggling with it, in that you're moving very you're very unstable or wobbly, I would modify the exercise, to hold on to a chair or something like that, and then work up to taking away the assistance and then modifying the exercise to make it a little more difficult as you go along. But it's not a good strategy if you have alternative strategies to make the movement a little cleaner and then work your way up, it's better. It's not a good strategy, really, to try something hard and then keep trying till you get it right, because if it's so hard that you're doing it horribly, I'll just say, then you're actually going to reinforce that bad movement. You don't have enough good movement in there, mixed in, to try to, that'll encourage you to progress along. So you could be going down a slippery slope there if you get to, if you go too far. An example of that is, one time I saw somebody doing an exercise on, I don't know if you know the Bosu balls. It's like looks like a half a ball, and if you put the round side down, it's like a wobble board. So I saw somebody doing a squat on with the round side down, which is very wobbly, and they were wobbling so much. The idea is it creates instability, but you should be doing that squat still nice and clean up and down, and you should be in a position where it's creating instability, but the exercise shouldn't look like your knees are wobbling all over the place and things like that. So if that, in that case, what the person should do is they could flip the ball over and just go on the round side, which is not as wobbly, but it just creates a little bit of movement, a little bit of a challenge. They could do that, or go on flat ground or something like that. So that's an example of that. So you have to just remember to adapt. And Laura says, totally agree. It's important to adapt your exercise to your mobility and condition. Worked for me. Yep. And there's also a comment about the kind of exercise. There's crossover, and they all help you. There's crossover into other skills that may not be obvious, but Tai Chi, for instance, helps with walking and balance, and if you have that variety in there, you're going to get some strengthening and other things that will carry over into all exercises. So the exercise should be challenging, and that's one topic that people may be confused on, or not totally clear on what that means. Some of it depends on the exercise flow. So for cardio, to get that BDNF benefit that I was talking about, you should be really challenging yourself. So you have a little. If you try to talk, you're having a little trouble. You're a little bit out of breath. To use specific numbers for heart rate. Obviously, first of all, if you're just starting a cardio program, you want to work your way up to 30 to 40 minutes of cardio, but it's perfectly fine to just start out with a 5-minute bout, and then add in a little bit more, or do 5 minutes and take a couple minute rest and do 5 minutes more. Just work your way up that way. So that's the time thing. But going back to the challenge, also you could monitor your heart rate. So I was, say there's a heart rate calculation, and maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. There's also a formula, Kevorkian formula, that factors in your resting heart rate. I forget the exact equation, but you could actually get apps or things calculated online that'll calculate that for you. But anyway, if you just take 220 minus your age, that's like your maximum, 100% maximum heart rate. When you're just starting out, you probably only want to go about like anywhere from 50 to 70% of that value. So you might want to do this like in 3 stages. And then you could get up to about 75 to 80%, something like that, 85%, 75 to 85%. And then really pushing it would be, where you're like 85 to close to 100% of your max heart rate. So that's another way to work up to your cardio, make it challenging. And And then I mentioned before in the previous topic about not having dysfunctional movement. You want to challenge yourself. You want to make it difficult, and every now and then it might in fact look a little dysfunctional. But as long as you could practice and feel yourself starting to get improvement, challenge yourself as much as you can in the other types of movements, whatever exercises they are, whether it's a sports type movement, agility drills. The thing I like to do a lot is the agility ladder, which just looks like a ladder, but it's flat on the ground. There's a lot of different exercises you can do, dance routines. So there's a lot of different things that take coordination, and you could I'll name some other ways that you could adapt. I mentioned one way before about like holding onto a chair, but there's a lot of ways to adapt exercise to make it easier. So you could change the tempo. So we had talked about doing things fast and big and everything, but when you're learning, sometimes you need to slow the tempo down. You could modify it or use assistance. So you can modify it by holding on to something, or using it might be a single-legged exercise. You could do it on 2 legs at first. Different things like modifying the. Let me see, what else did I have here? I have notes. Drawing a blank for a second, so I'm going to look to my notes. Oh, I guess that wasn't on this page. Okay, so you could modify the positioning. Okay, that's another thing. Positioning. So, for instance, push-ups. You could do push-ups to make it easier. You could do push-ups against the wall, push-ups again on a countertop. You could go to a stairway and go about 3 steps up and do push-ups. So you do your 20 push-ups that way, and then eventually you work your way down to the ground. So changing position is a great way to modify an exercise. And I especially like doing that with a push-up, because there's a modified push-up that you do on the ground where you're on your knees. And I prefer the modifying the position strategy, because you get that full extension where you're in the full push-up position, like a plank position, where your hands are on one surface and your feet are the other end, and your knees are off the ground. So now you're engaging your core more. So countertop is actually a great modification. There's a lot of different exercises you can use doing it off a countertop. Doorways, holding onto doorways. You could do, for instance, there's a balance exercise where you're in kind of like a tightrope stance, just standing still, one foot in front of the other. If you can't hold that for like 30 seconds or something to work up to, but you could do it standing in a doorway and kind of just put the back of your hands on each side of the doorway to hold your balance to start with. So it's very just gentle assistance right there, and then you could let go and you feel more comfortable. More components for an effective exercise program. You should be consistent and incremental. There's certain exercises that you should do at least a certain amount of days. Like cardio should be a minimum of 3. 4, 5, or 6 is better. And incremental, you should keep track of what you do and try to work your way up to doing more, going longer, doing more, making it harder, whatever. That will further facilitate progress. And like I was talking about modifying the exercise to make it easier, you could do things to make it harder. You could increase the tempo, increase the complexity of the movement. And that's actually going back to the thing where I was talking about modifying, make it easier. That's another thing you could do. You could take a movement and make it simpler, and break it down into smaller movements. So that's a good one too. Nina says, hi Nina, by the way. So you came on before, I didn't say hello. I'm Leona. For the push-up, hands wide apart or narrow? That's a question. Depends on what you're working on, actually, but just a standard push-up, they should be, your shoulders shouldn't be all the way out directly across your upper arm shouldn't be directly across your shoulder line. It should be kind of V'd down like this. See how they're coming down on a 45-degree angle, and your hands should be more or less just a little bit above your nipple line. So that's how your hands should normally be positioned. If you could go a little further out, that'll engage your chest a little bit more. And then if you come close together, that'll engage your triceps a little bit more too. But for the standard push-up, it's somewhere in between, where your hands are not up this high like this. They're more or less at your nipple level, and your upper arms are coming down at about a 45-degree angle from the side of your body, from your torso. So other components keep it fun, and then there's a social. And the social component is part of that too. A lot of people enjoy going to group classes, rock steady boxing, and there's other classes. Or there's even a social component. Even if you're one-on-one with a trainer or physical therapist, you're still going out to a place outside of home and interacting with one or more people, and that's great. And keeping it fun is very important. Very important to do things you have fun with. I'll give an example of what my regimen includes a lot of is dancing and running. Those are two of my favorite things. It's just a leisure activity, but gardening is another one of my hobbies. There's some exercise and movement involved there, but it's great to have an activity that you have fun with, because dancing is very good for Parkinson's, and it's a lot of fun. I love music. I love moving to music, and I've got the running bug. It's been about 10 years now where I've really been serious about running, and I enjoy that a lot. Don't do it as much as I used to, because I'm trying to balance it with other exercises. But you should have that fun component, whatever that means to you. And then accountable. It's very important if you want to progress. You really should have a journal and monitor what you're doing. Just in general, how you're sticking to the program. Like, are you doing enough days of cardio and of your other exercises? Are you improving? Monitor your improvement. Have goals. And it's okay to set like a long-term goal and be off of it, and then go off course and then modify it. That's totally fine. But at least set the goal, and maybe set some small, short-term mini goals, so you have some checkpoints. Don't set a goal for a year out and then not follow up with like mini, smaller goal checkpoints. So you should really say to yourself, this is where I want to be. Not just a year from now, but every week, every month, whatever. I'll reassess and say, this is where I'm at. This is going to be my short-term goal, and I might have to modify my long-term goal too. All that's fine. I'd much rather have you have those goals and modify them than not have them at all. It's like somebody who just makes a New Year's resolution and says, I want to lose weight, and doesn't even specify how they're going to do it, what time frame, what strategy they're going to use to lose the weight, how often they're going to monitor it, or what their expectations are, and everything like that. So you need all those things. So when I just mentioned the weight thing, I was referring to being specific. That's another important thing. So try to be specific in what you want to do. As you go along, you might find things that you'll have to adjust, or you might get additional benefits that you didn't even know that you were going to get, which would be great too. So that's the accountability part. Leave your ego at the door. If we have people out there who are moderately or hardly involved in exercise, please don't watch these videos of people. We all share videos of ourselves exercising, and we're all proud of each other and encourage each other. And don't look at them as like, oh, I should be there. Just assess yourself where you're at now, and then and then set some goals, and understand if you're in a community, we all support each other, so nobody's expecting anybody else to be at any level at all. It's just where you're at is where you're at, and then ask for help if you need it, and just keep trying to tweak your program and keep trying to improve, and don't worry about comparing yourself to others. So just leave your ego at the door where that is. And that same thing goes for advanced people too. Don't get too hung up on what you used to be able to do, like if you were athletic before. This is still a challenge, so take that athlete's mindset and just put it up to the challenge. Realistically think about, at least set short-term goals to regain some skills back, and but don't limit. I also think don't limit your mindset for the future. Shoot for the stars, and if you hit the moon, that's just where you're at, and just try your best. Let me see, I got another question in here, or a comment. Hi, Connie. Currently have class 4 times a week. Do power move circuit training. Includes agility, balance, coordination. All sounds great. Also cardio, rock steady. So that's an example of a good variety of things. So the variety is the spice of life. You got the social interaction there. That's great. I tend to like to do a lot of different things. Sometimes that gets me in trouble too, though, because you want to have that consistency. So one thing I do for variety is with the cardio. Some people are just very consistent with the same thing, whether it's biking, swimming, running, rowing machine, or whatever. I like to mix it up. I like my running, but I also do. I have an outdoor elliptical bicycle. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's an elliptical motion, but it's actually an outdoor bike. I use that for cardio, and then the other thing I use for cardio sometimes is HIIT workouts, high intensity. So that counts as cardio as well. So on a day I do a HIIT routine, I don't necessarily have to go on a bike or run or anything like that. I'm getting cardio from that. And one of the benefits of HIIT is you also, HIIT stands for HIIT, high intensity interval training, and the rock steady boxing is kind of like HIIT training a lot of times. But it's just a variety of exercises with alternating intervals of intense bursts of exercise, like 30 seconds, and then followed by a rest. The rest period could vary, 10, 15 seconds. Could be as long as 30 when you're just starting out. And you get the cardio benefit. Those exercises also include a little strengthening and some agility, so you get a little bit of everything. So HIIT is great. And Connie dances also. All right. You got a good mix there. Yeah, and speaking of dance, just putting on music gives you an extra bonus. If you're not dancing and running and doing your cardio and workouts. I have separate workout lists, one for running, one for my HIIT routines, different types of music that I like for doing those different things. So add music to it. That'll add to the fun factor and give you the dopamine boost. Hello, Sylvia from Mexico. All right. So now there's the types of training. So we talk about like type of training like rock steady boxing, yoga, power, LSVT, and things like that. Those I would consider like modalities. So the types of training that you should include are more like types of exercise. That's what I mean by types. So you want to make sure you have some flexibility exercises, stretching, if some of that's going to be incorporated into your yoga. But you also some myofascial release, which is foam rolling, which we've done some corrective exercise sessions on this show. It shows you how you use a foam roller, but there's other release techniques. You could get a massage too. That's another way of doing it. But that's a good way to help relieve rigidity and slowness of movement, range of motion, so you get bigger movements. So another type of exercise is just mobility, which is just different compound movements. The compound movements is where you're moving multiple muscle groups. So running is an example of a compound movement. You're moving your legs and moving your arms. But there's other things where you do some medicine ball work where you squat down and you come up and you reach, and exercises like that. There's also all the different things you do on the ground, like crab walks and things like that. Very beneficial to people with Parkinson's. You need to have a strong core. There's rolling patterns, all sorts of movements that qualify as mobility. And then there's anything that helps you move better. So then there's agility drills, there's sports drills. Our friend, a lot of people know Gavin. He's big on using sports movements to help people, and it's great because you have another component that I didn't mention is reaction. So if you have something that requires a lot of reaction, like ping pong and things like that, that's great. So like you'll see, if you've seen Gavin's videos, he's worked with people and stuff he does with himself. He uses basketball and baseball. So baseball, hitting the ball off a tee, righty and lefty. Then some reactive stuff like fielding ground balls and things like that. Anything where you react is great. So ping pong's been very popular lately. Some people play pickleball. Racket sports are great. We were talking about dancing a little bit, and I do ballroom dancing, and that's actually a little bit, social ballroom dancing is actually a little bit of a reactive sport, because when you get out there on the dance floor with your partner, and you're doing a tango or whatever, you're weaving in and out, and other people are doing the same thing, and you have to avoid people. There's backward steps, and other people moving backward that might back into you if you don't watch out. So that's, anything that causes you to react and move, to compensate for an obstacle or something coming at you or whatever, or that you have to react to, like in a sport. That's great too. Then there's cardio, which I mentioned. That's just a type of training. Stability, so you have all your balance exercises, and there's a lot of things you could do for balance. And again, we discuss some of these things on other episodes of Neuro shows. It's not just like balancing on one leg. Balance and fall prevention, there's a lot of different things you could do. I just talked about some of those sports movements and everything where you react. That's what happens when you fall sometimes, is you didn't expect something to happen. You step somewhere and then you step down into, you thought there was one more step, or something gets in your way and you have to react. You reach for something and didn't realize your feet were, positioned the way they were, and throws you off balance. So any types of movements that make you catch your balance while you're moving. You could either balance on one leg and move your arms, like you could rotate your arms around like this while balancing on one leg. So you could actually create movement scenarios where you're holding your balance and then you add in some movement that kind of throws you off to catch your balance. So that's another type of exercise. Stability, posture, gait training, those all fall into kind of like body alignment, stability, that type of thing. And you get those from various sources. And then there's multitasking, motor learning. We talked about the motor learning, which is really the same thing as the agility drills and stuff like that. But then there's, if you work with someone who's familiar with neuro rehab techniques, you could get into some things like cognitive training, where on top of all the agility stuff you're doing, you'll add in some cognitive training, which some of it could just be carrying on a conversation and the person's just asking you questions that have to make you think while you're concentrating on movement. what that does is it fires up the brain, because your brain has to work even harder to try and concentrate on the task you're doing while you're speaking and cognitively trying to communicate something to someone else, or you're counting, counting backwards, or spelling them backwards, or that type of thing. So that's another category. And then there's mind body, I had mentioned before, was a category too. So then we get down to the modality. Now there's so many things, so I don't want anybody to be who's a big advocate of whatever type of modality you use, rock steady boxing, this and that. I don't want anybody to get insulted if I don't mention your thing here. That's why I said in the beginning of this, the concepts are important, the types of movements that you do. So I just have like a list of things here, so there's all sorts of group exercises. And like I said, I can't name them all. There's rock steady boxing. There's a lot of people that have their own businesses. Rogue in Motion is a great one. My friend Claire McLean's over there she's got an online class. I'm just working with there's various personal trainers and physical therapists who are specialized with people with movement disorders and Parkinson's. Karl and I are an example of those. Karl has a ton of clients. I'm doing mostly coaching now, but Karl's one of the top experts on that on neuro rehab type of exercise that I know. He's one of the tops. But I had mentioned high intensity interval training, and that could involve a lot of different types of exercises. You find examples of that on the internet. There's a lot of different YouTube videos, different videos you can find on that. So you have different cardio modalities. There's a lot of ways to get your cardio, and you could even get, if you can't run, you could still get good, push your heart really hard and get that challenge in there, that forced exercise that generates that BDNF by doing extremely fast walking. I just had a hip operation recently, and before my hip started bothering me real bad, right before the surgery, I had started on a fast walking program. I was walking as fast as I could take, and I got my heart rate going pretty good. So I'm going to continue. I'm back into that now. I've been doing walking now, and I'm going to continue that as well. So you could even get cardio from walking. Walking with poles adds a little trekking poles. That was a little bit of additional dimension there with you moving your arms. That's good. So you got cycling, rowing. There's so many different things. One thing I used to do, I haven't done it in a while, is if you have access. This really only applies unless you have all this equipment to people who belong to a gym. But you could create a little workout for a little variety, a fun workout with multiple cardio machines. And I've done this with about 5 different exercises where I only do an exercise 5 or 10 minutes at a time. So I'd go on the treadmill, then I go on the rowing machine, then I go on the elliptical, go up the stair climber, the elliptical going backwards. So there's a bunch of things you could do. And then I would mix in there lateral movement. There's a movement called ice skaters, where you just push off side to side, and agility drills, lateral movement, fast side to side. So I'd add that in there too, because it's always good to get that. You don't want to just go straight forward. It's always good to get backwards, diagonal, side to side, rotational type movements in there. So there's a lot of different cardio things you could do. So there's yoga, and there's different types of yoga, Pilates. I'm not an expert on either one of those. I've gone to a few classes in them. Those are great. Some of the, it's good to mix things up too, because some movements like yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates, stress control, a lot of core, require a lot of core. They really get you in touch with moving your body from the inside out using that core. So it's good to mix things up and have those type of exercises too, not just do all fast, explosive stuff. Boxing, all the martial arts, all that movement with coordination, fast movements. That's all great. Resistance training is, it's good to have do some strength training because your strength, that's going to give you your stability, your foundation. That leads to better usage of your muscles and muscular control for things that take more agility and speed and things like that. So it's good to have a strength base. Dance and rhythmic movement. So when I say rhythmic movement, is you don't have to be a dancer. So you could walk to music. You could create different exercise routines and do different types of movements to music, whether it's boxing to a 4/4 count, 1, 2, 3, 4, fast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, different motions, running in place, and you do your jumping jacks to the music and things like that. So there's all sorts of ways you could incorporate music, even if you're not into dancing. It ends up being kind of like dancing anyway. Reactive sports, I include in that video games. People I know are getting into virtual reality and that type of stuff. I haven't, but there's that. That's good too. Reactive sports, any sport really that requires any type of reaction is great. If you could, if you don't play it as an organized sport, you can still have fun. Kicking the soccer ball against the wall, or dribbling skills, basketball, soccer, and hitting the baseball, and fielding ground balls, all those different things. And then working with individual professionals. So there's personal trainers, there's physical therapists, and don't forget occupational therapists too. They're very helpful with daily tasks of living and how to. They teach you some fine motor skill things, some tricks on helping your fine motor skills. If you're going to use a professional like that, try to get somebody who has a background with working with people with movement disorders. That would be very helpful. One good thing to notice, if you're using a professional, see how they do an assessment. They should really assess how you move. They should ask a lot of questions about your lifestyle, what your main problems are, issues, and that type of thing. So that's important. If somebody does that, that's good. Extra bonus from a physical therapist and a personal trainer would be to get a full movement assessment. The personal trainers, it would be good if they had a certification in corrective exercise. I have that certification, so it's Karl, where we could assess a person. One of the primary movement assessments we do is a squat, but there's other movements too we assess. And from that, you could see if you have certain muscle imbalances or movement dysfunctions, and that could be corrected with exercise. So that's corrective exercise. And physical therapists know how to do, that's part of their job. They do that too. They assess your movement and give you exercises to compensate for those movements. Dysfunctional movements. Breathing and meditation. There's such a wide variety of things. So just look out there, see, get information from the internet, from friends, and try different things. There's different philosophies on breathing, so I'm not gonna get into that. I'm actually using one that's, I don't know if I would say it's controversial, but not that common. It's all nose breathing, in through the nose and out through the nose. And it also involves some exercises where you're kind of doing very slow, shallow breathing, almost depriving yourself of oxygen. And so far it's been working out pretty good. It ends up being almost like altitude training. The method's called Buteyko, Buteyko. something like that. I don't know if I spelled it right. But there's other people. Some people are doing like Wim Hof, which I know of, but I don't really know the details. And then there's the deep breathing and diaphragmatic breathing, the type of breathing we do in yoga. So, like I said, explore, get information on it. All these things we're talking about with the exercise program, always check with get clearance from your doctor for doing different types of exercise. And also, exercise is doesn't replace medication. You know, a lot of us are on medication. It might help you reduce medication, but don't think of it as a replacement for it. It possibly can be. There are people out there who do it. You know, shoot for the moon. You know, give it a shot. But use your it's not a replacement for medication. You know, my advice is use your medication wisely to your advantage. You don't want to be too depleted of dopamine, but that's a decision between you and your doctor. And then there's special technology out there. So there's a lot of different things. Again, we might discuss some of them in some of the other Neuro shows. There's vibration technology. You can use vibration. There's vibrating balls, foam rollers, vibration platforms that you can do exercises on or help you with muscle release. There's textured things. There's massage balls that you roll on your feet that are textured. There's also textured insoles. You might have heard of, Karl and I mentioned the product Naboso, Naboso. They make textured insoles, which have helped a lot of people with Parkinson's, dystonia, things like that. We've seen people with shuffle walk put on the Naboso insoles, which are little insoles that have almost like a little bed of nails, but they have little pyramids in them, and they stimulate the bottom of your feet and helps wake up the nervous symptoms and helps your feet react to the ground and sense the ground better, and it helps with gait. And then there's the type of training that may not be so obvious that will help certain things that people don't know about. There's vestibular and eye exercises. Check those out. Again, you might see some of that on some of our Neuro shows. Eye tracking exercises. Those could actually help your balance. Be mindful too of whenever you're walking, keep your eyes looking straight ahead. Try not to look down at your feet. But there's eye exercise that could actually help with movement, balance, gait, and those type of things, and even strength and pain. There's some eye exercise that actually could help with neck pain. So that's all interesting. I covered one of those on one of the shows. What else is special equipment? So there's balance balls, there's stability balls. These things create a little bit of instability for you, make the exercise more challenging, and then help work on different muscles that will help stabilize your body, whether it's standing upright or even some of the exercises might stabilize your shoulder joint. So stability balls, balance balls, wobble boards. One thing I'll say about wobble boards is don't overuse them standing on them for balance. Because remember, most of the time you're walking on flat ground. You're not walking on a wobbly surface. They might help to generate a little bit of proprioceptive skill and strengthen your ankles because they'll wobble, if you're standing on them. But there's plenty of challenge you could get on flat ground, and you're on flat ground most of the time. So you need to train your feet, and training your bare feet is a great thing too, to really get in touch with how your feet react to the ground and the flat ground. There's special cases too where your environment might be you're in a wobbly surface more often. If you're a boater or a surfer and things like that, you're in those wobble board training all of a sudden becomes a little bit more suitable for you. use assistive things when needed, but another recommendation I would say is wean yourself off of using them, whether they're braces or canes, walkers, things like that. If you could progress off of them, that would be a good thing. Sometimes there's this mindset of once you start losing a skill that you're going to keep going down. So try to resist that. There's ways to turn things around and try not to rely too much on the systems, but they're there to help too, to help you get to a point. If you feel unstable and uncomfortable, then sure, add the stability in till you feel comfortable. Being fearful is one way you could fall. So I wouldn't push anybody to not use some sort of assistance, walker, cane, whatever, hold on to a chair or whatever. You don't want to push yourself to the point where you're unsafe. Safety first. And there's all sorts of tools, agility tools. There's the agility ladder. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. There's other things that I wouldn't qualify as like exercise or sports, but like juggling, anything like that. It's great. What's some other examples? Obstacles, setting up obstacles. You can set up your own little obstacle course. In the morning when I'm off, I'm not very well coordinated at all. So what I do is I just go around a chair, sideways, forward, side again, back, and then when I get back to the starting point, I reverse direction. So I go clockwise, then counterclockwise, or vice versa. And that's when I'm off. That's hard for me. So that gives me a little bit. I don't do a lot of training in off state, but as long as I can do it safely, I like doing some of it because it gives me an idea of how to control my symptoms, a little bit better of an idea and what's going on. And then hobbies aren't, could be a little bit of exercise too, but it's just important to include, when you're planning, fit your hobbies into your regimen, whether it's, and a lot of these hobbies include some degree of exercise. Maybe you're into bird watching, but that might require you to do some decent amount of hiking, things like that. So, and there's benefits to your body and brain there. So make sure you include those things. That's a goal of mine this year. I know I'm really good on like the exercise and movement stuff, but I want to keep learning more and more about meditation, the mind-body stuff. I know Tai Chi. I know Tai Chi a little bit. I got a certification in one form of Tai Chi, but I want to learn more about all the different mind-body things. So we didn't discuss how often to do things. Oh, so we're running a little overtime. Okay, let me get to that. So these are just general rules. Do what works for you, but give you some minimums. Find the mix that works for you, and make sure you're mixing up your activities so you're getting adequate rest. If you're feeling, wobbly-legged or whatever, often, you might need to change up your rest periods or the mix of exercises you're doing. So cardio, you want to do at least 3 times a week. Some people do it 7 days a week. I would just quickly say if you're a high-impact cardio person, you want to have at least one day where you're doing low impact, because that puts stress on your, that includes running or HIIT or any other kind of jumping movements. But that puts stress on your ligaments and tendons and that type of thing. So you want to, if you do that kind of stuff, you want to have one day off from that. You can still exercise, but just make it low impact. You're not pounding your feet on the ground. Strength training, at least 2 times a week. You get benefits from as little as 2 times a week, two or 3, I would say. If you're doing HIIT, you might get some mixed in there anyway. You could mix certain exercises in throughout the day. So you'll find out if you're doing enough of that. Basically, you want to do it on non-consecutive days, at least the same body parts. But you'll find out if you're doing enough of that if you monitor your progress. So, and then the other stuff, as much as you need to improve You know, all the agility and flexibility. Flexibility is something, you know, you should probably have some go-to stretches and general warm-up type of exercises that you do almost every day. But other skills like agility and things like that, 2, 3, 4 times a week, whatever it takes. Some of these things you can do in little like 5-minute bursts. Like I've taken out the agility ladder and did just a little 5-minute routine, and that's still going to be effective, you know, for specifically for developing those skills. So yeah, to take the opportunity, what I just mentioned about, you know, doing little bursts of exercise. There's a term called exercise snacking, which I do another presentation on, but that's just fitting in exercise during the course of the day, whether you could even incorporate it into your daily tasks, or actually just throwing in a few exercises before you have lunch or a meal, or before you're about to go somewhere, or whatever. I always do stretches when I'm going to be traveling before. Try to do extensive stretching, because then you might be sitting for an extended period of time. You could fit in little ways to exercising when you're on the plane. There's some things you could do even in a plane seat. Treat your body as a whole. You know, just try to take as many things as you can into consideration that are just even related to general health. You know, so your diet. There are Parkinson specific things, but just in general, think about your overall health and how you're impacting all parts of your physiology, whether it's your digestive system, your musculoskeletal system, your liver and your kidneys. You know, think about the junk you're taking into your body, the chemicals and things you're exposed to in the environment. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little here. I don't know if I covered everything on the. I was talking about the how often to do things. Strength, I mentioned cardio. Yeah, and then the other things are really just, you know, as you fit them in. You know, to keep a skills sharp. You know, some things may only need, you know, 1 or 2 days a week. You know, my ballroom dancing, I think I could get away with, you know, a couple of days a week. I fit in little bouts here and there. I do some solo dancing too. I have a little dance routines that I practice on my own. So some of it is just experimentation, seeing what works for you. But like I said, just do enough so you could at least maintain those skills. Stay with it. You know, there's going to be ups and downs. Bounce ideas off of friends, off of other professionals. Do research, and just keep moving, keeping it, and you'll enjoy a higher quality of life if you have a nice comprehensive exercise program. You stay with it. As I mentioned before, PD is relentless, but so are you. And if you keep moving, keep trying to stay ahead of the curve, keep learning, you're going to do great. And I know I see a lot of people that are on here today. I know you're doing that already. You got the right attitude. I want to try and work on some of those people who are not quite into the exercise stuff yet. Try to show them some success. You know, start out small, but there's a lot of things you could do. If you've lost a skill, just start out. Maybe just your exercise program is just identifying some skills you want to restore, and that might be a good way to start out. So hopefully this gave you some food for thought. I just threw out a whole bunch of different ideas, and like I said, I think the concepts are important. You know, if I didn't mention the types of exercises you do, you've talked about the concepts. You know, anything that just helps you move better, makes you feel good, is great. So keep moving, be relentless, be fearless, never give up. And hope you enjoyed this, and have a great day, everybody. See you on the next show. Signing out.
We're Neuro Bros, we got a show. We like to share what we know to help you move and be more stable. Got a question, put it on the table. Let's have some fun and keep on learning so we can keep the fire burning. So enjoy the show, take it in, and we thank you all for joining in.